Models of faithfulness. We should consider the 144,000 as models of what it means to be dedicated disciples of Jesus Christ in the midst of an evil world. Here's Dr. Gene Getz.
We first encountered the 144,000 in chapter 7. These were individuals that were chosen from 12 tribes of Israel. 144,000, 12,000 from each tribe. But now we encounter them again, right here in Revelation chapter 14. And verse 1, "Then I looked," John says, continuing his vision, "then I looked, and there was the Lamb standing on Mount Zion, and with him were 144,000 who had his name and his Father's name written on their foreheads." And what we simply can point out here is that these 144,000 did not have the mark of the beast on their hand or on their forehead, but they had the mark of Jesus Christ and the mark of God the Father. And they came through the Great Tribulation in spite of the fact that they took a stand against this evil person, the Antichrist, and also the false prophet. Now, there's some who also believe that when John looked up and saw the Lamb standing on Mount Zion, that he saw these 144,000 in heaven. But personally, I don't think that's true. Personal opinion, I believe it's referring to Jerusalem. I believe it's referring to the earthly Jerusalem, and it's the end of the Great Tribulation, and these 144,000 with Jesus Christ are ready to enter into the 1,000-year reign of Christ here on earth. Now, one of the reasons I favor that interpretation is that they appear to be in their physical bodies. And that's very unusual because in their physical bodies, you do not find people in heaven who do not have new bodies. And they're standing with Jesus, as it were, in their physical bodies, and they have come through the Great Tribulation here on earth. So that's my personal opinion. And others share that opinion as well. Now, there's a new song from heaven in Revelation chapter 14, beginning in verse 2. "And John said, I heard a sound from heaven." Now, if the 144,000 are in Jerusalem with Jesus, as it were, they now hear a sound coming from heaven, which the 144,000 can understand. So John said, "I heard a sound from heaven like the sound of cascading waters, and like the rumbling of loud thunder." We've all heard that. "And the sound I heard was like harpists playing on their harps." I'd have to say these are not normal harps. I mean, if they're like loud thunder and cascading waters, there had to be thousands of harps that would create that kind of music, and maybe it involved thousands of harps. But they sang a new song. There's a verbalization here. They sang a new song before the throne and before the four living creatures and the elders. Now, this is heaven because going back to Revelation chapter 4, he saw the living creatures, he saw the 24 elders, and they were in heaven. But no one, it says here, could learn the song except the 144,000 who had been redeemed from the earth. And I'm not sure why, except maybe it was just a special blessing to the 144,000 in praise to God for bringing them through the Great Tribulation without suffering martyrdom. We don't know, but anyway, we have a very fascinating situation here. Now we read on here and we find out that they were models of faithfulness, these 144,000. These are the ones who have not defiled themselves with women. These were all men, and they never married. This is not a statement against marriage. This simply means they were single men who were pure. That's all it means. They didn't get involved with women, which was so prevalent within this Great Tribulation period, all the fornication and all the evil that was going on. And they were above that in terms of they were models of moral purity. Since they remained virgins, that is, they never married, these are the ones who follow the Lamb. They're following Jesus. Wherever he goes, they were redeemed from humanity as the first fruits for God and the Lamb. No lie was found in their mouths. They're blameless. And that's a very interesting word in the Greek text because it means basically above reproach or being blameless. Doesn't mean they were perfect, but they were living very godly lives in the midst of a very difficult situation. Now, it's interesting when you read the letter that Paul wrote to Titus to appoint spiritual leaders in the church, he used the word, another Greek word, but it's also translated blameless. And these are basically synonyms in the Greek text. And so when I saw the word blameless here, of these 144,000, I couldn't help but think of the men of character that are described by Paul who are supposed to be spiritual leaders in the church. And here's what we read. The reason I left you, Titus, in Crete, was to set right what was left undone, and as I directed you, to appoint elders, spiritual leaders, in every town. An elder must be blameless. And here's basically the same English word as is used in the book of Revelation. Two Greek words, but synonyms. The husband of one wife, interestingly, which means moral purity, which relates to these men, although they were single. As an overseer, that is, as a spiritual leader of God's household, he must be blameless, not arrogant, not hot-tempered, not an excessive drinker, not a bully, not greedy for money, but hospitable, loving what is good, sensible, righteous, holy, self-controlled, holding to the faithful message as taught, so that he will be able both to encourage with sound teaching and to refute those who contradict it. Now, I don't think we can draw an exact parallel between these 144,000 men who are like 144,000 Apostle Pauls probably traveling the world proclaiming the gospel. An exact parallel, no. But in many respects, to be blameless today would be described by Paul as in his letter to Titus. And of course, that applies not just to spiritual leaders in the church, but it applies to all of us in terms of being men and women of character. In essence, though, I think these 144,000 probably reflected many of these traits, which made them blameless. And it's interesting, as I thought about that, I thought about what Jesus said to his disciples in Matthew chapter 16. Then Jesus said to his disciples, now get this, if anyone wants to follow after me, let him deny himself, take up his cross, and follow me. For whoever wants to save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life because of me will find it. As I reflect on that, as a follower of Jesus, I'm not sure that I could ever say that I've taken up my cross like these 144,000. Or like the apostles, many of whom were martyrs and gave their lives for Christ. So I believe that these 144,000, like the apostles and other followers of Jesus who've been martyred for Christ, in many respects really demonstrate what it means to be a true disciple of Jesus Christ. And we know there are many people today, I've been reading about martyrs recently in different parts of the world today who are literally giving their lives for Christ. And they know what it means to deny themselves and to take up their cross and follow Jesus. So I come to this applicational question. Though our planet is not yet influenced by Satan, as it will be during this period of great tribulation, in what ways are Christians today allowing themselves to be influenced by his, that is, Satan's, evil ways? Well, let me just simply say that Satan is alive and well, and he's just as strong today as he's going to be in the future when God gives him power to do what he's going to do through the Antichrist and through the false prophet that we've read about already. But he tries to sidetrack us, to be in love with the world. And John, who wrote the book of Revelation, gave us a warning about the world in his little epistle we call 1 John. He said, "Do not love the world or the things in the world. If anyone loves the world, the love of the Father is not in him. For everything in the world," and now he lists three things here that define the world: the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride in one's possessions, is not from the Father, but is from the world. And the world with its lusts is passing away, but the one who does the will of God remains forever. So if you look at these three things, which John refers to through the Spirit of God as loving the world, let me just define them in terms of, I think, what they mean. First of all, the lust of the flesh. That's any sinful desire or interest that interferes with our relationship with God and with fellow Christians. And you can fill in the blanks on that. I can in my own life. The second is the lust of the eyes, and certainly that's related to the lust of the flesh. And when we say the lust, it simply means desires, but here it's desires or lusts that lead us astray. So the lust of the eyes, any sinful desire or interest that comes through what we see and leads us to violate God's will. And of course the key word there is sinful desire or violating God's will. And again, you can fill in the blanks. I can in my own life. And then thirdly, pride in one's possessions, a sense of arrogance based on wealth or rank that violates a Christ-like spirit of humility. And of course, the key word there, or words, is, first of all, arrogance. Secondly, is the opposite, humility. Again, we can fill in the blanks. And so here you have an outline that helps us to make sure that we're not allowing Satan to conform us to this world, but to transform us, to be transformed, I should say, by the Holy Spirit to reflect the life of Jesus Christ and to follow the example of those 144,000, in a sense, to be blameless, above reproach, as we live our lives here on earth. Doesn't mean perfection, but it means this is our goal, to be imitators of Jesus Christ and who he really is in terms of his character. So here's the principle. We should consider the 144,000 as models of what it means to be dedicated disciples of Jesus Christ in the midst of an evil world.